Joining us now, he's on the campaign trail, E.W. Jackson. He's running for U.S. Senate as a Republican in Virginia. That'll be decided in a June primary, the primary, Tuesday, June 12th. And that'll be the second Tuesday in June. Now, there are 5 candidates in the race. One of them, I can't even remember his name. He can't win. So that leaves basically 4. E.W. Jackson, Corey Stewart, Chairman, Prince William County, Nick Freitas, House of Delegates member, Culpeper will be going through his town pretty soon here on Amtrak, and General Burt Mizrawa, who is supposed to get his signatures in the next day or so. But the General AWOL will not come on my show, missed the first 2 debates, so it's kind of hashtag a fake campaign. I'm not sure what the deal is there. He has, in my mind, 0 chance of winning. So you got 3 major candidates. Jackson, Freitas, Stewart. Stewart's the favorite. But EW says he can win, and I believe him. And he's joining us now, fresh from the debate last night in Charlottesville at UVA. Hey, the General not showing up at debates. I mean, what kind of a campaign do you have if you don't show up at debates?
Hey, John, I have no idea what Burt Mizrawa is doing. I'm sure he's a very nice guy, but I don't know anything about him really or about his campaign. I do know this, and I don't say this in any kind of arrogant or egotistical way. Just like you told me that President Trump was going to, well, you told me that then candidate Donald Trump was going to win the primary and win the general election. I'm telling you, I'm going to win the primary and I'm going to defeat Tim Kaine. And I'm going to win the primary because I really believe that of all the candidates, the other 2 major candidates, I'm really the only one that is capable of unifying people across all the lines that Republicans need in order to win. Veterans, evangelicals, libertarians, people who are concerned about our history and preserving it. I think I have a rational approach to that is unifying rather than divisive. So I think that by the time we get to June 12th, people are going to realize that the best candidate to go up against Tim Kaine is E.W. Jackson, and I will win the primary.
I was very impressed with your comments last night on the Charlottesville situation. I want you to share that with our audience when that came up. And let me just set the stage. I didn't have a chance to make it there last night. I was in Atlanta, but I read some of the news reports on it. And basically, the Charlottesville thing came up, as it should. And, you know, Nick took the position that crazies. And, of course, Corey Stewart took the position that there were Antifas on one side, the others on the other side. I thought you took the most rational position, was that both extremists are nuts, and we got to talk about real people here. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I said that I am really not so much concerned about what these nutcases on the white supremacists and racists think, or what these nutcases on the other side, the Antifa, who are, in my view, racist as well. They are often anti-white. They're anti-American, and I don't care so much what those folks think. What I care about is what we, the average Americans who are out here trying to live our lives. We love our country. We want the very best for our country. We want to resolve our problems. What we do and what we think. And so what we've got to be focusing on is coming together. And part of, I think, that coming together is really a resurgence of understanding of the beauty and, yes, the complexity of American history, because Antifa, these nutcases on the white supremacist side would have you think, well, America's a white supremacist country and we need to save the country for white people. And the others on the other side would say, well, white people are evil and they exploited and they've killed Indians and they enslaved black people. And the truth of the matter is that American history, while not perfect, is a history of a noble people doing their best when the country was established in a very, very difficult, dangerous time when the whole world was basically fighting to subjugate each other. I mean, it's not like America somehow was born into this utopian world and somehow we got it all wrong. I mean, we were the only nation that actually transcended all of that, and rather than becoming a nation of conquest, became a nation of freedom and opportunity for all of our citizens. So we've got to focus on that rather than allowing these extremes on either side to draw us into their stupid battles.
We're with E.W. Jackson. He's running for U.S. Senate on the Republican side. That'll be decided in a multi-candidate Republican open primary on June 12th in Virginia. And any registered voter can participate in that primary. And the winner will face off with Democratic incumbent first-term Senator Tim Kaine. Also of note, there's no runoff. So whoever gets the most votes on Tuesday, the 12th, will be the nominee. Good thing it's not a convention, because if you look at what's going on in the 6th District, that's why I hate conventions. EW, I think you could win this primary. I'm kind of with you on that. I really am. I want to get to some real issues, though. The budget, the spending bill that passed on Friday, I call it swaponomics. Deficit spending $1 trillion, $1.3 trillion. Debt goes up again. No real funding for the wall, $1.6 million. Trump wanted $25 billion. He got $1.6 billion. Not much. Everybody got their hand in the pie. The lobbyists were doing the happy dance. They all got what they wanted. Deficit goes up. If you're there in the Senate, what are you going to do in order to stop that kind of stuff?
Well, and this is the same thing I said last night, John. I'll say it again and again on the campaign trail. Most politicians are not leaders. Most politicians are not thermometers. They are thermostats. They simply reflect whatever is going on around them and where they think the path of least resistance is. I'll be going to the U.S. Senate to provide leadership. And that means fighting for the things that I believe in, standing up for those things. And yes, I would have not only said, well, I'm not going to vote for the omnibus bill, I would have tried to rally people against it. And by the way, that means not just rallying other U.S. senators. That's great. But rallying the grassroots people, giving them a voice to express their concerns and their issues with this bill. And most of the time, unfortunately, this is particularly true, it seems, for Republicans, we don't make the most of the platform that we have to inform people and organize people and get them moving in behalf of the things that we all believe in. So, yeah, if I'd been there, I would have voted against that omnibus bill, but I would have done more than that. I would have lobbied hard among my U.S. senators, and then I would have worked hard among the people to rally them to put the heat on the U.S. Senate and the heat on Congress to not vote for this thing and give the president an opportunity to veto this thing and still be able to move the ball forward because he had the American people behind him.
Well, he says, well, let this happen again, and I kind of believe him. You know, one thing I've learned about the president since he's been in office is he's a very quick study. He gets burned once, and it's like the old adage, you know, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me 2 times, I'm too stupid to have a job. I don't think that. I don't think it's going to happen.
That's not the way I've heard it, but I get it. Yes.
I made it up. Same thing. All right, let's get to national security. The president naming John Bolton as his national security advisor. You know, John Bolton defended all these wars. Defended Iraq. Defended Iraq I, Iraq II, Afghanistan, Syria. He's an interventionalist. And he thinks the CIA should continue to be meddling in other people's business, overturning governments. And, you know, you can say what you want about what you think he believes in. But on the record, I mean, he's been very clear about defending all these wars. What did you think of that, EW?
Well, look, I think that the president is not an interventionist. And I think he is not a nation builder. I think he is someone who wants to head off potential danger to our country before it gets to us. And that's why I say, look, I'm my own man. I think for myself. I, generally speaking, support the president's agenda. I have to say that while John Bolton, I think, can be a bit of a hawk and may lend himself or tend toward some nation building and some interventionism. He will be working for the president of the United States, who I don't think is interested in that. In fact, you know, the president has often said, why do we go fight these wars and nobody ever pays us? We don't get our money back. We go save other people and we end up running up all these deficits and then we get nothing in return. I think that the president has chosen John Bolton because he wants somebody who will buttress the hard line that he is taking with our adversaries. And I think John Bolton will do that. And that's one of the reasons why I support this particular appointment. I don't think John Bolton is going to be in a position to drag this president into conflicts that he does not feel are in the best interests of the United States. By the way, I'd rather have somebody there who is not going to fight the president like I really believe Tillerson was doing, and some of the other appointments he's made, where people feel it's okay to go off the reservation and contradict the president. I mean, I disdain that kind of disloyalty. If you don't want to work for the president, resign and then speak for yourself. But if you're working for him, support his efforts. And I think John Bolton will do that.
When this Parkland high school shooting happened and many of the students started to get involved, E.W. Jackson and Raleigh, I was one of the first people in the Trump orbit, and I'm a senior advisory member to his 2020 re-election campaign, a member of the advisory council. I was one of the first people to be willing to compromise on not selling a gun to you 21, getting rid of bump stocks, tightening up background checks, maybe even look at limiting the automatic rounds to under 30 or something like that. So I was willing to come to the table and negotiate, as Rick Scott did in Florida, the governor now running for U.S. Senate. But now that's turned into somehow overnight in repeal the Second Amendment. And I feel like whenever you go to the table with the other side and say, okay, we're willing to talk about a compromise, it ends up in a week or 2 weeks with, well, we want to repeal the Second Amendment and take away all the guns. I mean, how do you compromise when you got John Paul Stevens out there saying that you ought to remove the whole thing should end in removing the Second Amendment? Where do you take this argument when they do that?
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
I want your response. Yes.
Okay. Well, John.
Go ahead.
That's the real agenda of the left. And that is one of the reasons why I do not compromise on this issue, because I know what they really want is to disarm the American people. That's what they really want. Now, to me, there's only one thought behind that, and that thought is, and folks, don't misunderstand me when I say this, I'm not talking about, somebody jumping up tomorrow and trying to just violently overthrow the country, but I'm talking about a slow, steady statism that takes over the freedom and individual rights of the American people, and disarming them is one of those important steps in that direction, because the left really believes that people don't know what's best for themselves, and they think that it's always better when more enlightened people dictate to others what is best for them. And so this to me is just part and parcel of that way of thinking. Now, look, there's not a single criminal, John, who cares a whit whether you ban bump stocks, whether you limit the size of magazines, whether you do away with semi-automatic weapons. They could care less, because they're going to get whatever they want. And the less frightened or concerned they are about the possibility of an American being able to defend himself, herself, his or her family with a gun, the bolder they become. And so, look, I look at all of this stuff with suspicion. I have friends, of course, who are gun experts. I'm a gun owner myself, and they tell me, look, you know what? If you know what you're doing, you can turn any semi-automatic weapon into an automatic weapon. You can. So you're just going to keep. What do you ban next? Your finger? I mean, so what we don't seem to want to get to, John, is the fact that we've got a cultural problem in which we spent a generation telling people there is no right or wrong, there is no truth or falsehood, all things are relative, and it's all about you, and if you want it, just do it. And now we're saying, well, wait a minute, we seem to be out of control. We put games out there that reward kids with the more bodies you can take out, the more people you can kill, the more you are rewarded with points, and you can become a champion at killing people. I mean, we've got to look at our culture, John, and that's the hard stuff of looking at. Our founding fathers said, that our freedom could only exist in the midst of a virtuous and moral people. That so you don't have government trying to tell everybody what to do because they have an internal conscience that does not want to mistreat or harm your neighbor. And we've gotten completely away from that. It's all about selfishness now. We kill 1.2 million babies every single year through abortion, and then we want to say that the killing of people is somehow a gun problem. No, I think it's a cultural problem, because if you start with the guns, where do you go next? You go to knives next, you go to trucks next. The truck was used to kill over 50 people, I think, was that in Paris? So, I mean, it seems to me we've got to stop focusing on what's in a person's hand and start once again focusing on what's in their person's heart. And I've been saying this, John, I think we got to bring prayer back in the schools in some fashion. It doesn't have to be a prayer, a denominational prayer that tries to force people to have a certain level of belief, but there ought to be some basic acknowledgement of the fact that there is a higher authority that says, for example, you shall not commit murder. So that's where I am, John. Not all this stuff about the instrument itself, to me, is a lot of misplaced stuff, and the leftists are using kids and manipulating them, and it's not going to change one whit the level of violence in our culture until we start addressing the cultural issues that are promoting this stuff.
That's going to be the final word from E.W. Jackson, candidate, U.S. Senate Republican. That'll be decided in a June 12th primary. If you like what you heard, follow him on Twitter, E.W. Jackson SR, E.W. Jackson Sr., E.W. Jackson SR. E.W., I'm out of time. Thanks for being with us.